Duty of care for me means the well-being of everyone, from the organisation doing well and not having any reputational risks to anyone within the staff.
I think really for me it's the underlying responsibility that organisations have to care for their staff. They're asking them to do very challenging work often, and with that comes a responsibility to make sure that they are cared for and they are looked after.
Duty of care for me relates to accountability and responsibility of an organisation. How do we make sure that we empower people to do the right thing? How do we make sure that we spread awareness within an organisation?
Duty of care is about protecting our staff, ensuring that they're safe. Because our staff work in high-risk environments, it's essential that we're protecting their needs, mitigating the risk that they face whilst working in high-risk and challenging environments.
So as a lawyer, duty of care means for us the legal principle of negligence. So that is a kind of a test when you've got a duty of care to someone. You're making sure that you don't breach that duty of care and that you're looking after them. So within kind of Aidex and NGO context, that means you're making sure that you're looking after your employees, you're sending them out, if they're going on deployments, they've got all of the kind of necessary vaccines, body armour if they need it, insurance, and making sure that a thorough risk assessment is done before they do get deployed.
My understanding of duty of care is your responsibility as an organisation, your colleagues' responsibilities to others, and a personal responsibility that you have as an individual to make sure that nobody comes to harm. People have a level of well-being and there's a level of trust as well.
For me, people matter. They are at the heart of what we do and also why we do it. And so duty of care is about how do we look after people so that they can thrive doing the work that's so vitally important.
It is about prevention of harm. It's about ownership, taking responsibility, and understanding that it is, well, we start with a legal responsibility first, and I think we're not quite making that. And then building on, well, what's moral, what's ethical, and as an organisation, what that means, how we want to be seen, how we want to behave, and what that looks like in the future.
There's still a lot of needs out there to do better in duty of care. There's a lot of successes and a lot of practical things that are quite possible to do, and they need to be found, and people don't need to be shy about investing in taking care of their people better. There's more mechanisms to escalate grievances, so doing the right thing should be the first point for an organization to do, not the last point when they're cornered into it.
I think what was really important and something that came up a lot was actually not only looking at the legal compliance and the legal side of duty of care, but actually the moral and the ethical obligation, making sure that, finances and things like that don't get in the way of actually looking after your employees and looking after the people that, you're supposed to be looking after.
What I've seen in the past, and it all started many, many years ago, of how we look at people differently and we're not caring for people consistently. And I'm talking about national staff and local staff, if I'm honest, and how that transcends into the decisions that are made at a much higher level and the impact of that. It's really important that we think about the person at the centre of this and not just about the structures and the policies around it.
I think it's really important that we look at the digital space and how it's developing, because it's developing so fast in so many of the environments where the humanitarian action takes place. So my takeaways are, it's good we're talking about. We also need to talk about what it means for low-resource organizations to address these issues.
Data breaches or cyber attack can really cause harm to people's lives, right? And having that understanding is critical in today's world to make sure that we invest appropriately to reduce the risk of cyber attack.
These conversations are really important. People are wanting to have these conversations. They're not always easy conversations. They can be quite challenging. And they are complex as well. A lot of the topics are very complex. But I think it's really important that the conversations continue.
For me, this event has been incredible. The one takeaway that has been most impactful to me is the amount of people that I've met who are doing so much incredible things within the sector that we all belong to and that we all work in.
The Duty of Care Pavilion has been great. There's a lot of subject matter that I think was of real interest. For me, the session on misinformation and disinformation was really interesting, because I see that that might be the future of risk, especially for NGOs.
So I think my takeaways from this session is people are concerned, obviously. Like I mentioned earlier, it's no longer about whether an attack will happen, it's more like when it will happen.
We found it really productive. We've had so many questions, and the ability to actually speak to people, let them know a little bit more about the legal side, whilst also not boring them to death with the legal side. So that's been really great for us.
The biggest takeaway from this time, which has been really encouraging and inspiring, is that we need conversations, and I feel like there's been a space that's been created as part of this conference that has been missing for a few years, and so it's been really good to come together with security, HR and leaders, because a multidisciplinary approach is needed if we really want to see change and if we really want to see people thrive.
I really appreciate this session, and I think it's a good perspective for the next 2 years, and surely we'll be back next year.
This has been, I think we're overwhelming with, such appreciation to ILS, really, for bringing us all together. And I think you can see in that last session, it was just like a relief for all of us. I want this conversation to keep going.
The attention on the topic of duty of care, I think, is so important. So this event really brings in a lot of people that are doing some very interesting things, and I think it's important to highlight the successes and still flag the areas that need some work. And this is a great way for people to discuss that, meet, and advance some topics like that.
I think it's been a huge success. We didn't know what to expect when we put the program together. I think we've had some fantastic speakers, and I think the audience has been absolutely fantastic. We've had loads of really great questions, really great engagement from people. So I think it's been a real success and has really shown that there's an appetite to talk about these issues.